All right. So was there anything in particular that caught your eye and that you wanted to talk about yesterday? And then we'll roll into Steve Sarkisian and players today.
So it wasn't yesterday. It was just, I know you had an Oklahoma guy on. You've had two Plain Sports who they do actually a really good job. They're pretty unbiased when it comes to Oklahoma fans. And just in general, I know Texas has been getting more hype through, the media and everything. And I agree with the hype going into this season. And that's what I've tried to tell people, Longhorns fans and Sooners fans. Oklahoma's a better football program than Texas. We all know this. I don't think that's I think it's hard to digest for Texas fans, but I think they do realize that for the most part. But just coming into the season, Texas does have a better roster. I think you and I have talked about this. I think you would agree with that. I saw your power rankings. You have Texas pretty well ahead of Oklahoma. We come in with a veteran quarterback in his third year. We come in with 4 out of 5 returning offensive linemen. And Cameron Williams, the right tackle, replaced Christian Jones. There was thoughts last year that Christian Jones or 2 years ago, Christian Jones was going to go to the NFL draft and Cameron Williams was going to take his place. And the Texas staff was fine with it. They believe he has higher upside, and I do as well. So this offensive line paired with the wide receivers, paired with Steve Sarkisian, and all the assistant coaches have stayed under Steve Sarkisian's first staff other than the wide receiver coach. So they've done a really good job there. Oklahoma is also breaking in 53 new players. I don't know why nobody's talked about that. That's a lot of new players. And if you look at the super blue chip ratio and the blue chip ratio in general, when you include transfers, Texas is higher in both of those. So I don't understand the hatred, I guess, that's coming from Oklahoma fans. I mean, I understand you're always going to hate Texas, but I don't understand how you could, I guess, say that you have a better future as of going into next year than Texas. That's my main point.
So I'll take the Oklahoma side. Not that I disagree with anything that you just said, but more from an emotional, I want to stick up for my program and not be discarded, 6 weeks before the season even starts. One would be, yes, they were a better program in the Big 12 than Texas. So for all these years, they've been better than Texas almost every year. When is the last time that Texas has been better than Oklahoma before last year? 2009?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of hard to take that we've been better for all these years and years and years. Now, Texas, boom, they elevate. They go to a playoff, could have went to a national championship game, and they're considered better than us. But I think you have to deal with what the reality is today going into this season. Doesn't matter what happened 10 years ago now. That's ancient history that we can just talk about for fun, but that's not an analysis of what's going on right now. But as I pointed out, and this was my main point in bringing this up, was this is how close sometimes college football seasons teeter on success versus, I won't say failure, non-success, or not getting to the destination, is that Oklahoma won the game against Texas. It's a crazy game. It was a great game. It was one of the best games of the season to watch. So it wasn't like they showed that they were better, but they were that much better on that day. So they won the game. And then, of course, they had a couple very close losses that they should have won the games. And when I say they should have, I'm not saying they got ripped off. I'm saying that they were a better team over the course of the season. They should have won the game. But Kansas outplayed them. Oklahoma State outplayed them. There were some tough calls in that game. While Texas, obviously, they pulled out some close games themselves against inferior opponents.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. The only thing, you brought up Houston and Kansas State. We did play our backup quarterback in both of those games for about the majority. Houston was like a quarter and a half. Kansas State was the whole game. And Kansas State, we just imploded in the second half. We were up by, I think, 4 scores at one point. It might have been only 3. And that was the kind of the story of the Texas here as a whole. We were killing TCU. They came back in the game. We were killing Houston. They came back in the game. We were killing Kansas State. They came back in the game. And the reason for that is we were bad in the red zone, and that's definitely something we have to fix. And then also we just have to get better at finishing out halves, quarters, etc. Because I think there's a point in every game to where you can put the nail in the coffin, and Texas never really did that versus their opponents. And also Oklahoma played in close games. They won too. They barely beat UCF. They barely beat a bad BYU team. So they had close calls as well. I just think it honestly comes down to coaching. And I'm not saying Brent Venables is a bad coach. There's not enough data on each side or on either side to determine that yet, in my opinion. I think this is the year for me to see whether he is a bad coach or not. Like if Oklahoma goes 6-6, he's a bad coach, in my opinion. They have to go, in my opinion. I think this team has enough talent to be an 8-4 team with that schedule. I think that's where they should be at. Obviously, if something goes crazy, someone gets hurt, that's fine. But there's a lot of pressure on that staff too, because you kicked Dylan Gabriel out. You did. You said, I want Jackson Arnold. We think he has a higher upside than you. And this guy, Dylan Gabriel, was the reason you beat Texas, was the reason you won a lot of games last year. Could have won the Heisman Trophy or would have been in New York if he stayed healthy and Oklahoma continued on their trajectory. And he's not there anymore. They chose Jackson Arnold. So if Jackson Arnold comes out and he's just not good, there's going to be a lot of questions. That's all I'm going to say.
Sark and players at the SEC Media Days today in Dallas. Did you pick up anything that was meaningful to you?
Yeah, so a lot, actually. I watched Steve Sarkisian's whole press conference, and he was very confident. The most confident I've ever seen him preseason, ever. He came in, he said, we have a top 5 football team in the country. He said that to multiple people. He said, in my 4th year, this is the deepest and most talented team. And people are going to look at that and say, wow, you just lost 11 NFL players and say that, but you replaced them with a lot of good players as well. Some players that were also brought up by the players themselves. Kelvin Banks, the left tackle, brought up Trey Moore, the transfer from UTSA, said he's been giving him trouble in practice, which that is either the best or second best left tackle in college football. So if he's giving him trouble, he's going to give a lot of people trouble. Other than maybe Georgia on our schedule, if he's giving Kelvin Banks trouble, he's going to be a big issue for everyone else. Another one that's been, and I'm going to make a comment and prediction here that I've heard because Quinn Ewers said it today, Ryan Wingo. He's been named throughout the whole summer, going into fall camp, and it's continued. And I said a couple years ago, Jonathan Brooks would be just as good as Bijan Robinson, not because of the talent, because of the scheme. I said a couple years ago that Steve Sarkisian would work out, at least offensively. So far, that's turned out to be the case. I think Ryan Wingo is going to have a better career at Texas than Xavier Worthy. I haven't even seen him play it down, but the way he's talked about, this reminds me of exactly Xavier Worthy. When Xavier Worthy got to Texas, the first thing out of every person's mouth on the offensive side of the ball was Xavier Worthy. That's all they talked about. That's all they said. They said, watch what he's going to do. I think he had like 900 yards receiving his first year at Texas. And I'm only saying he's going to have a better career because of the same situation as Jonathan Brooks. He's stepping into a better program and better situation than Xavier Worthy did. When Xavier Worthy stepped onto the football field at Texas, he was the number 1 guy on offense immediately. Ryan Wingo's not going to have to be that. And I think Ryan Wingo's going to end up being the most talented guy probably since Roy Williams here at Texas. And I know that's a lot of pressure, but that's what I believe. He's a 5-star for a reason. I think he's going to have a great year. I think you're going to see him eased into the offense throughout the year. And I think sometime around Oklahoma, you're going to see him probably become a starter at the wide receiver position because that kind of talent cannot be put off the field.
All right. Who were the players that showed up? I saw Kelvin Banks, but I didn't take note of anybody else.
Yeah, so they had Jahdae Barron there, which makes sense. He's the veteran on the defensive side of the ball. They had Quinn Ewers as well. He got obviously mobbed in a lot of questions there because he's one of the faces probably this year in college football. And that's another thing too. Quinn Ewers, when he stepped on campus, and Sark has talked about this, you can just notice it from interviews, a lot more confident. He's a lot more confident in himself. He's a lot more confident in his ability. And I think that's translating, obviously, to the football field. And I expect a really big year from him. I said if this Texas team wants to win a national championship or at least compete in a national championship, 2020 would be the blueprint for me for this team, Alabama-wise. For this 2025 Texas team, I think Quinn Ewers is going to have a Mac Jones-type season. And the confidence matters a lot because I'm trying to think of any successful quarterback at the college or professional level, and they have confidence that borders on arrogance at most times. I would say the only guy that I can think of is Eli Manning. No offense. He kind of always seemed lost on the sideline to me, but maybe he is confident. I just don't see it. But everyone else has confidence. I mean, the one guy that stands out played on that Oklahoma team, Baker Mayfield. That guy was cocky as all could be. Quinn's not going to be that, but there's this quiet confidence, quiet swagger that he has, and I think you're going to see that on the football field this year with Quinn Ewers.
Got Matthew Miller here, and the Texas show is every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. It's on the Texas channel, so please check it out. It's a good time talking Texas football. If you love Texas, of course, you got to be there. If you hate Texas, you got to be there as well. The Michigan game is week 2. And I know that we also have a live stream that you guys have to check out where Matthew diced it up with the Michigan guys over on the Michigan channel. So check that out. I'm sure that was a whole lot of fun. I'll ask it this way. Can Michigan get away with a 18 pass attempt game and just slam it between the tackles?
Oh, that's a good question, because that's another thing that was brought up today. And this is without anyone asking about these certain players. Sark was asked about the defensive line, and he went to 2 guys that transferred in, Jermaine Lelay from Louisville and Arizona State, and then Bill Norton. Those are 2 guys that came to mind, and they're going to be very key factors in that game. Jermaine Lelay has the talent and upside. His issue was health. He was injured at Louisville. But if you go look at his 2019 season with Arizona State, I don't think he's going to be able to replicate that at Texas. But if he's 80% of that player, you're getting a probably 5th round, 4th round draft pick, NFL draft type guy. Plus Alfred Collins hopefully makes that next leap. He's going to be an NFL guy, but can he be a 1st round, 2nd round pick like the guys that came before him in Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy? I don't think Michigan can do that, because there was always respect for J.J. McCarthy. No matter, I'm not a J.J. McCarthy guy, but I knew the guy was going to be a 1st or 2nd round NFL pick. Alec Orji's just not that. Like, he's shown me absolutely nothing that's going to say that. Until he shows me that, I think Texas is going to load the box, 1 high safety most of the time early on, and say, try to run. And if they can't run, they're going to be in trouble, because I said in that preview, I think Texas wants to make Alec Orji throw the ball. My number was 24 times or more. If Alec Orji throws the ball 24 times or more, which is about 6 a quarter, I think Texas wins the game. If it's under that, then I think Michigan wins the game. And people keep pointing to the Penn State game, but the Penn State offense last year is nowhere near what this offense for Texas is going to be. Drew Aller versus Ohio State, Michigan was terrible. Like, could not complete a pass over 10 yards. I don't think Quinn Ewers is going to have that issue. They have way more weapons in the backfield. Not way more in the backfield, but more in the backfield, in my opinion, and definitely more on the outside than what Penn State had. So if you want to replicate that game plan, sure, but you're going to have to score more points than they did in that game. What did they score, 17, Mark, or something like that, 13?
They threw up a late touchdown. It was 24-15. Yeah.
Yeah, Texas is going to score more than 15 points in this game. So it's hard for me to believe that Michigan can do that. Honestly, what they're going to have to do is hopefully he can complete a couple deep passes like Jalen Milroe throughout what Alabama did last year. Even Jalen Milroe didn't do that versus Texas. He completed 1 deep ball the whole night. And if 1 deep ball is not winning you this game, I think Alec Orji is probably going to have to complete 2 to 3 to even win this game. So I don't think they can, but that defense is special for Michigan. I said in that preview, I think Michigan has the best defense in the country. So it's going to be hard. I'm not saying it's not going to be. I think Michigan's a 9-3 type football team. And if we had just a legit top 12 team playoff, I think they'd probably be in that. So it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a fun game. It's one of the most excited games of the season for Texas. And this is probably the most excited I've been for a season in general for Texas. Like Sark talked about today, we get to renew the rivalry with Arkansas again. We get to go hopefully correct that mess that happened in his first year. We play Texas A&M. Apparently, Sark talked about this. He would eavesdrop on conversation in the locker room. There are Texas players talking about that game. And I guarantee there's players from A&M talking about that game because, like he said, these guys went on visits together. These guys were choosing at the same time where to go together, and they're going to finally get to play each other. I think that game is going to be crazy on top of what happened with the baseball teams this year. I would not be surprised if a couple fire alarms are pulled in the Texas Longhorns hotel if they decide to stay close to College Station. I'm hoping they stay outside of it, but we will see.
So with your knowledge of the roster, I'll say it like this. Give us a player on offense, a player on defense, not necessarily that's going to be some superstar All-American this year, but a guy that hardcore college football fans that try to soak up as much personnel as possible will know about because they'll break through this year to be an impact player.
Okay, so on defense, I'm going to go with Jalen Gilbo. This is a guy when Sark got there really liked. He's a big nickelback, and I think they're going to try to work him in with Jahdae Barron because Jahdae Barron is the nickelback. But I think, again, a big word that Steve Sarkisian is using this offseason is versatility. So I think he's going to play a lot of these guys in weird positions, and I think you're going to see Jalen Gilbo at the nickelback in a lot of these spots. I think you might see him at cornerback too. We'll have to see. I don't think you'll see him at safety. There's a possibility there, though, as well. This guy's really talented. He's a big guy, 6'1", I believe between 185, 200 pounds. I was really impressed when he did play the last 2 years. His issue has been injury, so I expect him when he's on the field to make plays for Texas, and a secondary that's revamped and I think re-energized in general, and is going to be pretty good. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with a guy that I didn't give enough love to. I was completely wrong on this guy. Going into the season, I said Gunnar Helm was probably a 6th or 7th round guy at the tight end position behind Jatavian Sanders. When he got his opportunity, especially the Iowa State game stands out for me. He was really good. So I expect Gunnar Helm, and people are pointing to Amari Niblack. Amari Niblack's probably not going to be the starter. Gunnar Helm's going to be the starter at tight end for Texas. I expect him to have a really good year and probably be like a 3rd or 4th round pick when he decides to come out in the NFL draft. So those are 2 names to keep an eye on. There's plenty of other names I could go with. I already named Brian Wingo, but those are the 2 I'll go with that I think will jump onto the scene for Texas this year and introduce them to the world of college football.